The best builds for every single weapon in Monster Hunter World. Yes, you heard it right, guys and gals, Terra Knights. What's up, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. So I've had a lot of people in the live streams asking me for my best builds or a build for a particular weapon. I've been doing a lot of marathon runs, hunting Fatalis over and over again in a single stream with every single weapon, Elatrion. We've actually been doing them back to back every single week, and every single time I get to a weapon, somebody asks, yo, Terra, can you show me the build? So I thought it'd be great to prioritize a build video, actually, that has all of the builds in one place. So obviously this video is actually very long and that might be a little bit daunting, but we are going to have timestamps, of course. So if you guys are just here for one particular build, all you gotta do is seek for that and you will get my preferred build for Monster Hunter World. But I do need to give a disclaimer. A lot of these builds have some of the end game of the end game armor in Monster Hunter World, including Velkhana Gamma armor, Fatalis. You get the point. And disclaimer number 2, I am not a speedrunner. I'm not a super sweaty, expert, crazy challenge run Monster Hunter World player, you guys. If you haven't watched one of my videos though, I am, however, a Monster Hunter veteran. I've been around the scene for about 20 years and played the games on and off for a very long time, so I know a few things. So if you are looking for the min-maxing top damage builds in Monster Hunter World, well, this video might be for you because we get pretty close with some of the damage and some of the crazy builds that we have today, but we're not catering to a 1% of players who are absolutely cracked. These builds will serve as a guide to show you the end game of the end game builds that even I, a Monster Hunter veteran, will default to naturally to take on some of the hardest monsters in the game. So this video absolutely has a place in your feed and in your view and your watch time if you want to get some really cool playstyles that are endgame, that are still fun, but extremely strong. Like I said, there will be timestamps for your particular weapon, and I will have the decorations shown on screen, and I'm going to go through a simple explanation of all the builds if you are looking to get into a weapon that you may not play, or for players who might not be too familiar with some of these weapons. Mods, show them the builds. So as I said before, we're going to keep this build video very simple. We're going to go through every single weapon. I already have them lined up, as you're going to see. So starting off, we have the best Greatsword, or Terra's best Greatsword. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we are going to be using a lot of the same pieces you're going to see, Rime Guard, Fatalis armor, because it's simply the best. But what is important with this build specifically is we're actually using Safi Shatter Splitter instead of the Black Fatalis Blade. Most players like to use Black Fatalis Blade, but I prefer this weapon as we are able to get awakened abilities such as Sharpness increase 6 and a 5. You could actually swap this out for another attack increase 5 to get you attack increase 15, but I like attack increase 10 altogether. But what is most important is that we get the Velkhana Divinity on the weapon itself, meaning we only have to wear 3 pieces of Rime Guard to get us Frostcraft. Now, because we do have the Velkhana Divinity, it also means we have Fatalis Legend 2 because we are wearing only 2 pieces of Fatalis. So with the weapon itself, we get a 4-piece bonus set and a 2-piece bonus set. Scrolling over to augmentations itself, we are actually using an attack increase 1 instead of affinity because we are not fighting against affinity so much as with the Black Fatalis Blade. And of course, we have the normal health regen 1. Next up, going into actual crucial skills that you need. This might seem like a no-brainer, but we do actually need to slot in our health boost, which does come from these critical vitality jewels that you see down here. Because we are using Frostcraft, we do have the Fatalis Legend 2, but we do not have the Fatalis Legend 4. Otherwise, taking a look at the affinity as well, we are at a nice clean 30%. Now, for all the folks who do not know, 30% is the key amount of affinity that you want with the proper skills to get 100% affinity guaranteed on your attacks. The reason being is 30% affinity gets you a chunk of the way. And then if we do have Agitator all the way up to the Agitator Secret, which is level 7, we actually get an increase to our affinity by 20%, putting us at 50% affinity, even though you can't really see it now. But then, of course, we have a weakness exploit, which is hitting weak spots with 30% increased affinity, and then an extra 20% if you have tenderize the monster's parts, such as the head, meaning a whole 50% on top of that gets us a clean, even 100% affinity, as long as we are wall banging the monsters and raging them and making sure to tenderize and hitting the weak spots, guys and gals. Otherwise, focus is a crucial part of any Greatsword build. Reduces charge times by 15%, literally just allows you to get in some attacks that you normally would not land in certain windows of opportunity on certain monsters, and by certain monsters I mean most of them actually. We do have a few points of evade window level 3, just to help with the Greatsword rolls, in case we do need to get out of some danger, or maybe just to roll through a roar easily and more comfortably. Quick Sheath level 3 is actually extremely important because we are using a Greatsword. It doesn't have the slowest sheath animation, but we are using Frostcraft, so sheathing the weapon as soon as possible to get it building back up again is actually stupidly important, especially with the Greatsword, as it does take up a huge chunk of Frostcraft with the small single hits that you are doing. Coalescence you're going to see in a lot of these builds actually, while active, grants a true raw of 18 attack damage, as well as elemental attack power plus 90% and status buildup plus 15% when we recover from blights or abnormal status, such as Thunder Blight, Ice Blight, Fire Blight. You get the gist. Otherwise, taking a look at all the skills here, you can see we also have some blast attack in here. You can actually slot this jewel out for anything else really. You could put maybe evade extender, evade window, although evade extender on a Greatsword build is not something I've tried before, and we're actually going to be trying that soon. I'll let you guys know how that pans out. Next up, we have Terra's best Longsword build, the one that I think is the comfiest build. We are using the Fatalis Zagaspanon. So we are fighting against affinity here, as this weapon has pretty low affinity itself, as you can see. But we do have the affinity increase augment to help battle that, health regen, of course, and the element status effect up. This is just straight up a full Fatalis build with the Rhyme Guard Greaves, of course. Looking at the final attack of this build, we are sitting at 1195 with a decent amount of purple sharpness afterward, 25% affinity, so we're not quite hitting 100% affinity. There are certain ways to get a little bit extra, but I settle for this with this build. Because we are using full Fatalis, we have the Fatalis Legend 4, grants us True Razor Sharp, health and stamina plus 100 at the start of the quest, or even after fainting. And of course, the level 2 before that removes the skill level cap for the secret skills, but you already know what's going on at this point. Because we are using a Fatalis weapon, we do need to have as much critical eye as possible, so we have that up to level 7. We have Agitator level 7, of course. Now, something that you'll notice here as well is the Divine Blessing level 5. On a Longsword build with a truly experienced and skilled player, you probably don't even actually need Divine Blessing, but it really helps. Next up, we do have Attack Boost level 4. Level 4 specifically because level 4 is when we get an extra 5% affinity. So instead of sitting at 20%, we're actually sitting at 25. Otherwise, as for very important skills, I like to have Evade Window on my Longsword just to make sure that I am getting through certain attacks so I can properly set up Helm Splitters, all that good stuff. Handicraft is also down here. You can see that actually just comes from some of the armor itself, from the Fatalis. We don't actually have decorations slotted in, but it is actually very helpful on the Longsword, as Longsword does run through sharpness pretty quickly as long as you can keep a good flow with the weapon. Now, another skill that is very important, actually, especially on the Longsword, you wouldn't believe it, but Quick Sheath level 2, or even Quick Sheath level 3, if you can get it there, actually helps speed up your Longsword special sheath animation time. So it's not just for normal sheathing with the Longsword. That's actually really helps. Otherwise, we do have Clutch Claw boost because Longsword is a light tenderizing weapon, meaning that we do need to Clutch Claw and do a tenderize attack twice, or we can just slot this bad boy in and only have to do it once. Otherwise, this Longsword build is actually pretty standard. There's not really a whole lot going on here. It just maximizes the amount of damage that we're doing with some comfortability with the evade window. We also have some handicraft, meaning that we can actually just run through the flow of the Longsword itself while keeping our max damage at purple sharpness with peak performance, coalescence, health regen augment, and the quick sheath to boot. Next up, we have the best sword and shield, which is a Frostcraft sword and shield build, ladies and gentlemen. So we are using a Fatalis sword and shield, and we are going full Frostcraft on this bad boy, actually. The Fatalis sword and shield isn't too bad, sitting at a negative 20% affinity, but we are still going to battle it a little bit with the affinity increase 1, health regen augment 1, and element status up, of course. This does put us at a nice 25% affinity, 150 dragon, and 519 raw damage with a decent chunk of purple sharpness. As you can see, this is probably the cleanest skill list that I have for any build. Don't look at the last page, of course, but every build is maxed out and looking, so clean. There's not really a whole lot to look at here. The main game plan with this weapon is to perfect rush spam over and over again. Frostcraft damage on the perfect rush with the sword and shield absolutely makes this weapon one of the strongest weapons and builds in all of Monster Hunter. And while I'm not much of a super hard challenge runner or a speed runner, I simply love this build as we do not have to actually use Fatalis armor to get health boost in here. I mean, we even have like recovery up. Along with this, we have Coalescence, Quick Sheath, which on Sword and Shield might seem silly, but again, it is for that Frost Craft. We even have Critical Draw just because we are wearing a lot of Velkhana armor. It's not even actually necessary. We do have Agitator level 5 only though, but because we aren't fighting against Affinity so hard, because it is a Fatalis Sword and Shield, the level 7 isn't too necessary to get the extra affinity. Otherwise, here's the second page of our skills. We are using Latent Power, we have Resuscitate, Flinch Free, Clutch Claw Boost. Now, funny enough, I'm not really showing the skills page on this build actually, because there's actually not a whole lot to know when it comes to very important skills with the Frostcraft Sword and Shield playstyle. This is just an extremely solid build, and as the Sword and Shield is already a very evasive and defensive weapon, and it can boast really good attack and great attack speed, having all of our damage skills absolutely maxed out while still being able to fit in health boost and even recovery up, which yes, recovery up does affect our health regen augment, and even still being able to fit in Clutch Claw Boost. This build is an absolute beast, and the only attack that we're really missing is maybe some dragon attack, but this build just boasts so much high raw attack combined with the Frostcraft. This build is absolutely nuts, and it can easily get you a few thousand damage on a single knockdown with a single full Frostcraft Perfect Rush, and you will be shocked when you see the damage numbers. Next up, we do have the best raw dual blades. Yes, you heard it right, ladies and gentlemen. We are using a raw dual blades build. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this is my video, and I actually do like me some raw dual blades. Although a lot of dual blade experts will scoff at the idea of a raw dual blades build, as dual blades actually make the best use of elemental damage, or are at least one of the best weapons. I simply like the raw dual blades build because I don't have to think about changing my element per weapon. I can literally just bring this into every fight. I wouldn't have to make 5 whole builds. This is just a super strong, solid build that's going to work in every single situation because we are using the Fatalis Dual Skies. But there is actually a more important reason as to why we are using a raw dual blades build, is because it is a bit easier to fill in an extra couple points of like Marathon Runner, as well as like a little bit of evade window, even some Quick Sheath. The same with any Fatalis weapon-centered build. We are using the Affinity Increase 1, Health Regen, and Element Status Effect up. Taking a look at our actual raw damage, we're boasting a very solid and impressive 535 raw damage with 25% affinity, 150 dragon element, and actually a lot of purple sharpness. Dual Blades does run through sharpness pretty quickly, so this is very important. Taking a look at the actual skills, however, though, we are running Critical Eye level 7, we have Agitator level 7, Handicraft level 5 just to get a ton of purple sharpness on this build. Divine Blessing is also very important if you overcommit to Demon Flurries, of course. Having Divine Blessings can really save your skin. Next up, we do have Attack Boost level 4. This grants us attack plus 12, a 5% affinity to help us get to this 25% affinity mark. But skipping over the typical skills, what we do have actually is Marathon Runner level 2. Reduces continuous stamina depletion by 30%. This is very, very, very helpful when you are using the demon mode with dual blades to help keep your stamina from draining too much. We do also have Evade Window level 2, which can be really nice with the dual blades. Quick Sheath level 2 is also not quite necessary, but the Quick Sheath is coming from a little bit of the Velkhana armor. On the last page, of course, we do have Flinch Free level 1. We do not want to get hit by other players, and we do actually have Coalescence level 1 as well. The reason why we only go with level 1 Coalescence here is because we are actually fitting some other skills into this build, but truth be told, you only need 1 point to get a true raw value of 12 extra attack compared to 15 and 18, which isn't actually lending too much to your raw attack. And as we are using a raw dual blades build, getting it all the way up to level 3 only gets us about 50% of what we originally get from just 1 skill point. So this is a very worthwhile investment to go level 1, or you can even go level 3 if you really want to push it. And of course, Clutch Claw Boost. So slotting this in means that we only have to tenderize once to get a tenderize and a pod drop from the monster. Next up, we have Terra's best Hamera build. Another Fatalis weapon, of course, which means that we are fighting against the affinity here. We have affinity increase, health regen, and we have defense increase. This is actually just because I didn't have the materials for more element status up. So swap this out for elements up if you can, guys and gals. Otherwise, taking a look at the impressive damage with this build, we get this build all the way up to 1929 attack with a sliver of purple sharpness. We do have 35% affinity. We are overcapped a little bit, but there's a reason why, and I'll show you here in a second. So taking a look at these skills on this page and all the decorations combined, we have a little mix of a lot of things actually. Of course, we have attack boost level 7, crit eye level 7, agitator level 7, all peaked up to get to the max amount of damage. And then we do have divine blessing because sometimes you can be sitting in a locked animation with the hammer or with the big bang combo, doing a spin to win, or even a charge attack. You're likely to get hit if you miss time an attack or you just misguess the situation. Now, compared to evade extender with the hammer, I actually go level 4 with the evade window, as I find that when you're charging with the hammer, you are running around a lot, meaning evade extender is a really nice skill and it can get you where you need to go really fast, but charging with the hammer is actually really important, and because you can run around with it, trying to use evade extender actually close the distance means that you lose your hammer charge. So we go level 4 with the evade window instead. Otherwise, we are running part breaker level 2. Hammer's already a really good part breaking weapon, and we just want to amplify that further, going with 20% of part damage. I also do use this build on fatals a lot, and I just like getting that head break very quickly. Otherwise, there's actually not a whole lot to say here. This is just a very solid build that hits extremely hard with this huge raw damage value. Oh, that's right, we do have the 35% affinity. This, of course, is just because we have a lot of critical eye, and we have our attack boost to level 7. The extra 5% is coming from getting attack boost level 4, as you can see down here. We have affinity increased by 5%, so we are at the normal 30% to get the sweet spot of 100% affinity combined with weakness exploit and the agitator level 7 when this is active. So the 5% is just overcapped a little bit, but it's for good reason because we're just getting a lot of attack boost for a true raw extra attack of 21. Otherwise, as you can see here, there's actually a lot of deco slots that you can slot in different things for. For instance, you can get rid of both of these destroyer jewels. You could slot in a level 2 jewel here because hammer does boast some of the highest raw attack damage in the game, and I just love pushing it, especially as the hammer is already a very evasive weapon. Because the hammer is already a more evasive weapon, you can run around with the hammer, you can charge your attacks and run around. The rolls are very quick and have really good iframes. There's not a whole lot of glaring skills that you really need to make this hammer build work. One thing that you could definitely make an argument for here, though, is that we aren't actually running any focus. So if you want to charge up your hammer a little bit quicker, by all means do it. I don't do it, however, because I like having my charge ready as I'm coming into the monster, and you can take your time as you get to move around with that. Compared to something like the Greatsword, where you have to sit in place and you hope that it comes out very fast, with the hammer, you actually just get to hold your charge. So I find it's not completely necessary in this build. Next up, we have the best hunting horn in Monster Hunter World. Now, this is a hunting horn build that is actually primarily focused on a ton of damage because hunting horn already struggles with damage a lot. We are using the Fatalis Menace Whaler to get the highest raw attack damage for a hunting horn in the game, and it actually does have pretty decent melodies if you are going with the game plan of I want to destroy everything with this big bell. And with that in mind, having knockbacks negated, attack up large is actually extremely important. Along with the self-improvement buff, we actually do get our raw attack value all the way up to like 2,500 attack after a meal buff, all of your item buffs, with that included. The damage on this weapon can actually get extremely insane. We are using affinity increase, health regen, and element status effect up. Taking a look at the skills, this is another extremely strong damaging weapon build. I find that hunting horn does struggle a lot, so if you are looking for a more melodic hunting horn build with a lot of variety in it, this isn't for you. This is Death Incarnate, the hunting horn build, as we do have full attack boost level 7, full critical eye level 7, agitator, divine blessing is here just because it's really good. Again, of course, we even have peak performance, coalescence, and yes, we do have coalescence on a hunting horn build. This gets you so much extra damage, is absolutely nuts. We even have a dragon jewel level 4 down here just to get us just a little extra attack, level 2 dragon attack here. And we do have a little bit of handicraft, Horn Maestro. The Horn Maestro is actually coming from the Sonorous Jewel up here. If you are unaware of what this does, or you don't play hunting horn, Level 2 greatly increases the effect duration of hunting horn melodies. So this is an extremely important jewel that you should honestly just have in any hunting horn build, or you should definitely just try to get this skill through the use of armor if you really can. If you're using hunting horn early, maybe you're looking at this guide and this build to see what an end game build looks like for hunting horn. But this thing is actually kind of crucial, not depending on where you're at in the story, meaning this thing is something you should always have in every hunting horn build. But this build is something that I would take up against Fatalis and other monsters in the game if I'm trying to get a very quick time with hunting horn. And the attack up large, of course, if you're playing in a group setting, gives a huge attack damage boost to all of your teammates. Next up, we have the Lance, my favorite Lance build in the game. This is also Death Incarnate. So another Fatalis weapon, of course, meaning that we are using the affinity increase, health regen, element status effect up. We are at a solid 35% affinity, meaning that we can get the 100% affinity on weakened tenderized parts with agitator active, of course. Now this weapon is called True Fatalis Lance, but this is a true Lance build because we are using guard level 5. We do have offensive guard down here. On the other page, you can actually see we have guard up 1 as well. Lance's shield has literally the best shielding capability in all of Monster Hunter World. So we're going to run through these skills real quick, and I'm going to tell you exactly why they're so important. So guard level 5 massively decreases the impact of attacks and reduces stamina depletion by 50%. 50% is absolutely massive, and if you do not have stamina, you literally can't block attacks in Monster Hunter. Taking on some of the hardest monsters in Monster Hunter, this is an absolutely crucial skill if you're using Lance and you do have a guard playstyle. There is another playstyle you can use, which is an evade window, evade extender Lance playstyle, but I like using the Lance the way it's intended, although the evade window and extender playstyle is actually very, very, very fun if you just like to poke, dodge, poke, really good stuff. Otherwise, Lance does struggle with damage a little bit, so we have all of the attack skills, of course. We even have Coalescence slotted down here. But moving on to the other guard skills. Offensive guard, level 3, while active, increases attack power by 15%. And the way this is activated is you execute a perfectly timed guard. The way this is done is by guarding right when an enemy attack is about to hit you. It's actually a lot more lenient than you think and pretty easy to pull off, actually. Last but not least, guard up. One of the skills that I have a love-hate relationship with, allows you to guard against ordinarily unblockable attacks. There are a lot of attacks from monsters that you literally just can't block against, and so you have to slot this skill in to be able to block against those attacks. That's where my love-hate relationship comes in with this skill. Now, when it comes to my opinion and thinking whether this skill should belong in the game in general, this is an absolutely crucial skill that you need to have on your Lance build or any guarding capability weapon where you are going for a guard playstyle. So do not forget this skill at home, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have my favorite Gunlance build to play in Monster Hunter World. Now, this is actually a bit of an unorthodox Gunlance build. I'll go over the whys in a second here, but we are using the Fatalis Gunlance. We are fighting against the affinity a little bit, but something to note is that this is a normal shelling type Gunlance, which means that we do a lot of burst fires. Perfect for the Slap Lance playstyle. Shelling level 7, very good stuff. We are rocking the normal affinity, health, element up augments. Taking a look at the actual raw attack damage and the sharpness on this build. The sharpness is decent. You might want to run a little bit of handicraft to get some extra sharpness if you do not want your blade to get absolutely dull from using the actual shelling of the weapon. But that being said, we do have a perfect 30% affinity to get up to 100% with the right requirements of skills. We're going into the actual skills of this Gunlance itself. We have artillery level 5. This is actually capped at level 3 unless you have the secret skill, so that is why we are going with a Fatalis loadout this time around. Level 5 increases power of each attack by 50% and reduces Wyvern's Fire cooldown by 70%, ladies and gentlemen. 70% is absolutely massive. Wyvern's Fire isn't the most important thing, but it's very fun to be able to just spam it whenever you want. But having 50% damage on all of your Gunlance shells is actually extremely important, and it's the Wyvern's Fire damage too. Now, something that you may have noticed, we actually have Evade Window level 5 and Evade Extender level 3. So the Evade Window, a lot of people know what it does, of course, but this massively increases the invulnerability window. If you don't know what that does, it basically gives you a lot more iframes than normal for your evading with your rolls to get through monsters' attacks, roars, you get the gist. Coming into the next page and looking at Evade Extender real quick, this also greatly extends the evasion distance. If you have seen me in my live streams play Gunlance, you'll notice that the back hop that I do a lot with Gunlance is actually extremely good for positioning. Even though the Gunlance has some of the best shielding capability in the game, not as quite as good as the Lance, it's actually a very viable weapon to play a very evasive playstyle with this thing, and that's why I go for the guarding on the Lance, because I want to make use of the Lance's really good guarding, whereas the Gunlance is actually extremely talented when it comes to an evasive playstyle. So we actually don't focus with guard up a whole lot at all, especially because we are trying to do some shelling in here and some normal slap lance playstyle as well. We do have tool specialists as well, actually. I actually find tool specialists super important because I like having the rock steady mantle at all times, meaning that I can just keep up a strong, constant, steady flow of damage with the slap lance playstyle, with trying to get wyvern stakes off. But it is a very handy utility skill, and I absolutely love it on Gunlance. And because we are using a slap lance playstyle, we are going with Coalescence, of course. And we do have the capacity boost level 1 to get an extra shell on the Gunlance. Now, there are a lot of other Gunlance builds that you can utilize in Monster Hunter World. Some that actually make use of the Gunlance's shielding, some that make use of the Skill Slinger capacity to help with the Wyvern Blast playstyle. But this is actually a Gunlance playstyle that does not focus on Wyvern Blast at all. With this Gunlance, you will not see me use Wyvern Blast because I just like to focus on strong raw damage without having to do a lot of other little mechanics. I like skipping all of that because I think that this is just a simpler Gunlance playstyle, and I think that this is something that you would really enjoy if you're looking to get into Gunlance without a whole lot of nitty-gritty details. Next, we do have the Switch Axe. Don't mind it saying Scuffed Axe. This used to be a very bad build before, but we really turned it around recently. Another Fatalis weapon, of course. We are rocking 1225 raw attack damage. We have negative 20% affinity before any of the buffs from the skills in this weapon. We are going with the standard affinity, health, element up augments. After everything is said and done, however, we do have affinity at 20%. But taking a look at the skills themselves, we do have a lot of Critical Eye, Agitator, of course, Tool Specialist. We went over with the Gunlance before, but I'll go over it again in case you just skipped to the Switch Axe part because you just want to play Switch Axe and do 0 skill discharge. But Tool Specialist reduces the recharge time for specialized tools all the way up to 50%. Switch Axe does make use of the 0 sum discharge. You literally get to stick your sword in the monster's face and blast him in the face over and over and over. Yes, I know that sounds weird, but it's actually some of the strongest damage in Monster Hunter World. A very solid, easy way to beat Fatalis, and is honestly just so good that you cannot ignore its damage. Coming into some other skills though, having recovery up is actually very important on this build because the recovery up does affect our health regen augment. Recovery up actually does help us heal and survive. If we do have the Rocksteady Mantle on, for instance, on a monster, we take damage while we're mounted onto them doing 0 sum discharge. So the recovery up actually does synergize with the health regen augment with the massive amount of damage that we're doing, meaning that the monster can't really fling you off unless it's a pin attack move. And with that, of course, we do have Power Prolonger level 3, allows longswords, dual blades, but most importantly switch axes to stay powered up longer. If you do not play switch axe, you do not know, you do need to charge a meter with the sword mode in the switch axe to actually obtain the 0 sum discharge, as well as really good damage with the switch axe in general. It's a very nice weapon management playstyle, and I highly recommend switch axe if you are trying to get into more management in your playstyles. Peak performance is also very crucial, more so on this build than anything, because getting that maximum damage when you do have full health with the recovery up makes it a lot easier to get back up to full health to get you a lot of extra true raw attack damage. Evade window level 2 is actually extremely important, and if you can, I actually suggest getting this all the way up to like level 4 even, because the evade window is actually very short. Inherently on the sword mode's side hops, it has very small iframes because sword mode is very offensive but does a lot of damage, of course. So evade window can really help you get through monsters' attacks and roars if you are indeed using sword mode's really good damaging capabilities. Otherwise, we actually do have earplugs level 1, and there is a specific reason for this. If you are not a switch axe player, or you simply do not know this key fact about the switch axe, whenever you do utilize 0 sum discharge, you actually get an inherent earplugs level 4 whenever you do it. It's not quite enough to get you to nullify any monster's roars, so having the earplugs level 1 combined with the inherent level 4 that you get when you are 0 sum discharging gets you complete nullification of all weak and strong monster roars. This is not something that the game tells you. You just kind of have to know this. Even a lot of switch axe mains out there probably do not know this key skill, and this is extremely important. But a very solid switch axe build that really focuses on the weapon management playstyle, and the power prolonger is actually just really good because you don't really need to just zero sum discharge. The sword mode is actually extremely strong and it actually has a really good amount of damage and is actually the way to go over ZSD on a monster knockdown. Next up, we have my favorite insect glaive build. The Kinsect, you can honestly use whatever you want, but I do like the Final Fantasy XIV crossover Kinsect just because I think it looks cool. Otherwise, we are using a Fatalis weapon again, of course, meaning that we are using the affinity, health, and element up. Like I stated before, we are using the Nexus Dragon Soul. This is a Final Fantasy XIV crossover Kinsect that is in the game that does have a master rank version, and it is pretty solid across the board. Like I said, I just use it because I think it looks cool. But we are sitting at a 25% affinity. We would like to have 5% more, but we just can't get it, but that's okay. So first off, in our skills page, we have a critical eye, agitator, divine blessing, of course. Divine blessing really helps when you are in the air, more so on this weapon. But I highly recommend divine blessing in case you do get sniped out of the air by a monster's attack. Otherwise, we are actually running tool specialist level 4. We would like to get level 5, but it's just a little tough with this build because we do have a lot of skills slotted in. We went over this in other builds, but if you did skip to the Insect Glaive guide, I will go over this briefly. It reduces the recharge time for specialized tools. Now, this is really, really important because it does affect our Rocksteady mantle, our temporal mantle, because as you know, being in the air with Insect Glaive is really, really important and can actually help you get extremely good damage through the use of the downward thrust attack with the Insect Glaive from the air. But if you are liking to stay in the air and just dance around the monster, these mantles can absolutely protect you from getting sniped out of the air as well. So having tool specialists reduce the recharge time on these just makes it easier to always be able to be in the air depending on our playstyle. Insect Glaives stay powered up longer from the Kinsect extracts that we do get. Really increases the duration weapons are powered up for. Otherwise, we do have a little bit of handicraft. This is also a skill that you could bump up a little bit because as you see, we are actually fighting with the sharpness here a little bit. Such as Insect Glaive does run through sharpness a little quickly depending on your playstyle. But we do have that 1 point of handicraft slotted in right here because it also allows us to get some extra tool specialists. So if you can find a way to bump up your tool specialist to level 5 and get your handicraft up a little bit, I highly recommend it. Otherwise, it's just a Kinsect Glaive build that is very comfortable and does a ton of damage on monsters and has a lot of tool specialists. And going back to the tool specialists, of course, it's extremely important skill to keep your mantles up to even further ensure your survivability with a weapon that's already very evasive, meaning that this build just becomes so comfortable to use. Next up, we actually have my favorite Charge Blade build to use, and this one actually may make a lot of expert Charge Blade players pretty mad at me. So this Charge Blade build is actually very, very, very beginner friendly. Taking a look at the augments though, we are of course rocking affinity, health, element up. When everything is said and done, we do have 1300 attack, 35% affinity. Taking a look at the skills, this is actually a very clean skill page, again, of course. Now I'm gonna go through why I really, really love this build. It's this evade window and this evade extender. Now you notice that we do not have a lot of guard or offensive guard because we're actually not focusing with guard points on this weapon. This is actually more of a Savage Axe playstyle where we actually want to keep our Savage Axe and utilize this massive evade window and massive evade extender to actually position ourselves to get in these extremely strong Savage attack moves, especially as when you are in Axe mode, your mobility actually drops a ton. And using all this evade extender at the very least, even over evade window, ensures that we actually have really good survivability if we are not comfortable with guard points, and actually just makes it easier in most cases. I'm actually a firm believer now that this is actually the extreme way to go if you are not a speedrunner. Your damage actually probably would increase because this is just so consistent over being an absolute expert with the weapon that I consider to be the most difficult weapon to play in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter in general. But taking a look at the skills because of this, we are rocking Evade with a level 5, of course, massively increases invulnerability window. We already went over Evade Extender, really extends our evasion distance, awesome stuff. But we do have Power Prolonger again. If you did skip to the Charge Blade build, we did talk about this in some of the other builds, but allows Longswords, Dual Blades, and most importantly on this build, Charge Blades to stay powered up longer. Great increases the duration weapons are powered up for. So this is extremely important for our Savage Axe playstyle as well. We even do have Fortify in here just to get extra damage on the crazy damage Savage Axe puts off. Although we're not planning to die. We do have Capacity Boost level 1 as well. Increases Charge Blade's vial capacity. So you can get some extra time and damage out of Savage Axe mode. Now, yes, one thing is missing. It's Artillery. If you actually want to maximize your damage, go for Artillery on this build. But like I said before, this is actually a very comfortable play style that actually ensures that I get a lot of DPS uptime. So I actually think that Artillery isn't extremely important when you are using a build like this, because Artillery, if you do see here, strengthens explosive attacks like Gunlance shells, but more importantly, Charge Blade Vial attacks. Increases power of each attack by 50%, which is massive actually. So if you do not like this much evasion, slot in a lot of Artillery on this build. Otherwise, this is my favorite build to use. This is not a definitive Charge Blade build by any means, but I actually highly recommend this if you do not know how to use Charge Blade, or if you know how to use it at a very beginner level, because even I am not truly an expert with Charge Blade. Even I'm still practicing guard points and all that to this day. So this build is something that I can always rely on to actually just absolutely have a blast with Charge Blade, and I highly recommend it. Next up, we have the Light Bowgun. We are using the Aqua Shot Pierce, of course. Now, Pierce damage isn't really the best on every single monster, but Pierce is definitely the best damage you can get in Monster Hunter World for the Light Bowgun in most situations. So we are not using a Fatalis weapon this time around. We have Affinity 5% without any other additions, but we are going with Attack Increase 2 actually, and Defense Increase 1. The reason being is we don't actually need any Affinity really, and we also don't need Health Regen Augment, because if you do not know, or if a lot of players do not know out there, the Health Regen Augment that you get back from ranged weapons is actually extremely low compared to melee weapons, and so it's really just not worth it. It takes a very long time to get yourself back up to full health if you do take a hit, and seeing as ranged weapons are a lot more evasive, meaning a lot more defensive in certain ways, there's just not a whole lot of point. That being said, I do use health regen on some ranged weapons actually, depending on the situation, but I'll go over those as they are in other builds in this video shortly. So as you can see here, this is actually a light bowgun that does make use of piercing level 3 ammo. We do have some sticky ammo as well, of course, so if we are hunting normal large monsters or elder dragons, we can actually get a knockout with this weapon. Everything in this build does lead up to having a 30% affinity, the very nice sweet spot. Deviation is very high, but we do have 2 recoil suppressors on the custom Bowgun mods, as well as close range up and a power barrel attached. Now, bowguns are actually a lot more skill dependent, so we're going to go through the skills a little more in depth here. We have Agitator and Attack Boost level 5. Divine Blessing is, of course, there because we take more damage as a ranged weapon user, so having this proc if we do get hit is very important. Free element ammo up is actually your best friend with a lot of ranged builds. So at level 3 here, it is a little ambiguous, but it does say it expands clip size for most ammo, and this definitely is a skill that you want on pretty much any bowgun build, as not having to reload as often means more damage. Now, light bowgun is very nice for its evasive playstyle, so we are rocking evade window level 3 here, just to ensure that we do not get hit, because we don't have any shielding, blocking capabilities unlike the heavy bowgun. Coalescence is also here just to get us a ton of extra true raw attack damage. And we do have piercing shots level 2. This is coming from 2 Pierce Jewel level 3s, so if you do want to do a spread type bowgun instead, all you need to do is swap these out actually for spread decorations. However, this weapon, as you'll notice, actually cannot make use of spread ammo, so you need to make sure that you have a weapon that can do spread. Otherwise, as for the armor pieces, you can easily swap it out. Special ammo boost is also here at level 2, increases the power of bowgun's special ammo, and yes, that does mean the little mines that you can set down with the light bowgun. If you are unfamiliar, this will increase the damage of those. Otherwise, Fortify is here just because it's a really solid skill. If we ever die, we get extra attack and defense percentage. But most importantly, we also do have Clutch Claw boost, meaning that we only have to tenderize once to get the tenderize, as this is a light tenderizing attack weapon. Otherwise, we have Mind's Eye Ballistics. Prevents attacks from being deflected. Also shortens the distance before ammo and arrows reach maximum power. So this is actually a very, very crucial skill. There is a sweet spot when you are shooting with bowgun, and this ensures that you do get the maximum amount of damage and power, especially, and this skill actually makes it a lot easier to not have to be super far away from the monster, as the monster does close in on you very easily. You want to actually stay kind of far away, and this actually drops the distance, making it easier to get the better damage. So yeah, not a whole lot else to say. Oh, we did not go over this before, actually, my bad. So we are using Pierce Capacity 3, and we also have a recoil suppressor suppressor on the bowgun itself, which is actually really cool because using the safi'jiiva weapon means we get these awakened abilities. Really awesome stuff. And then we do have an attack increase 15 with all three of these combined. And next up, we have the best heavy bowgun in Monster Hunter World for making short work, light work, easy work, no reaction for pretty much most monsters in the game. So we are using a Fatalis heavy bowgun. We are fighting against the affinity a little bit, of course. This is a Wyvern Snipe heavy bowgun as well. And for the custom mods, we do have 3 recoil suppressors, 1 reload assist, and 1 close range up. The truth is you actually do not need this reload assist whatsoever. You can actually equip the special scope custom mod to actually get a different critical range to get actually really strong damage on the heavy bowgun. And that's actually what is actually more preferred here. But for being a streamer's sake and having people watch my gameplay, I don't subject them to the special scopes. You know, it's awful camera. So this is the reason why I have it like this. As for the augmentations though, we do have most of the standard. We have affinity, health, but we actually have the defense increase 1 because we do not need element up, but because we are using a Fatalis weapon on a bowgun, we are fighting the affinity, so we have that here. And we go defense here because we get to slot in 1 extra augment. Taking a look at the ammo types, of course, we are able to use normal level 3, but why would we do that when we have level 3 piercing and spread ammo? So the nice thing about this build, actually, as we are getting over into the actual skills page, we are using spread power shots right here because of these spread jewels. As you can see here, increases the attack power of spread ammo, power shot, and Thousand Dragons. So this increases spread ammo damage, of course, but you can actually slot in piercing jewels like you saw on the light bowgun build here instead. And because the Vor Buster actually does make use of piercing and spread ammo, it means that we can easily swap this out to make this a piercing bowgun build or a spread bowgun build. Otherwise, taking a look at the actual skills that we do have here, we have Evade Window level 5 and Evade Extender level 3. Because we are not using a custom shield mod on the weapon itself, it means that we're not actually blocking with the heavy bowgun. But the Evade Extender 3 and Evade Window level 5 makes the heavy bowgun an absolute monster in terms of defensive capabilities that aren't necessarily shielding through the use of evasion. With all that being said though, we are using free element ammo up, of course. If you did not catch it before on the light bowgun build, free element ammo up actually expands clip size for most ammo, and yes, that does include this build. Otherwise, you're just going pretty much full and maximum damage, except for getting this attack boost all the way up to level 7, of course. But we do have Evade Extender, Evade Window to make this build actually very comfortable, because you are prone to get hit very easily, but I'm telling you, you are never going to get hit with Evade Window level 5, and the evade distance that you get with the extender on level 3 with the heavy bowgun is absolutely insane, man. Now, we do actually have 1 point of quick sheath as well. Speeds up weapon sheathing. The heavy bowgun does have a little bit of a longer animation when it comes to sheathing, so this just helps. Honestly, I'd get this up to level 3 if I could. So yeah, not a whole lot else to say here, actually. This is a very nice heavy bowgun build that makes use of Vor Buster, of course. And like I said before, actually, you can make use of piercing and spread ammo. Depends on what you want to slot into this build. Last but not least, we have my favorite bow build in Monster Hunter World. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this bow build is actually kind of all over the place, but we are using the Bow of Vice and Violence. Yes, this is a Fatalis bow. We have a large range of coatings, actually. The only thing we do not have is Blast, but it actually makes use of Paralysis and Poison coating very nicely. See that little plus icon. Fighting against the Affinity, we do have the Affinity Health Element Up, of course. And Element Up is here because this is a dragon weapon. Bow is a ranged weapon indeed, but bows actually have an element actually attached to the weapon instead of using element ammo compared to bow guns. But the bow is kind of like a nice hybrid ranged weapon. At the end of the day, we are at 25% affinity. Not quite hitting the nice, sweet 30% mark, but, you know, still pretty good. So we do have, of course, the damaging skills, a critical eye, agitator. We even have Evade Window level 5 because as a bow user, you take pretty much like the most amount of damage in Monster Hunter World. It's absolutely insane the amount of damage you take. So I find Evade Window extremely crucial. We do not have Divine Blessing, as you notice, because I do rely on my skill as a bow player to have the Evade Window. And through that, actually, we do have skills like Constitution down here. Reduces stamina depletion when performing stamina draining moves, such as evading. Reduces it by 20%. And because you do get bow charges whenever you are dodging around, doing the charging sidestep, this actually really helps to make sure that you have enough stamina to make use of the evade window. Otherwise, if you're not going for a little bit of stamina skills, you could slot in Divine Blessing. This is what I prefer on my build in this video. Otherwise, going into actual crucial skills with this bow build, we have normal shots level 2. That is through these force shot jewels 3 here. Greatly increases the power of normal ammo and normal arrows. So this literally just increases your damage pretty much. Now, spread and power shots. Spread is actually very useful here because spread actually affects bows as well as spread ammo for bowguns. But it greatly increases the power of spread ammo, power shot arrows, and Thousand Dragons. So Thousand Dragons isn't that useful in Monster Hunter World anymore with the bow, but power shot arrows are extremely important and is pretty much your main source of really good damage with the bow. So I highly recommend that you get spread and power shots in, as this is going to increase the damage a lot. Otherwise, we do have Part Breaker level 2, actually. Bow is actually not really a good part breaking weapon, but this actually just really helps to get those part breaks. Depending on the monster that you are fighting, and getting certain part breaks can actually make fights easier. So this is actually a really nice skill that I really like to have, because this is kind of more of a bow build that is straight raw damage that you can bring up against any monster in the game. Similar to the Dual Blades build, having elemental bow build for every single monster in the game, depending on their weakness, like Dual Blades, is actually the way to go. But this is a bow build that's comfortable, and I really enjoy this bow build because I don't need to actually think about any of this. I can turn my brain off and just know that I'm still getting extremely good damage when I go into any situation with this bow build, especially because this bow actually has access to a lot of coatings as well, meaning we have a lot of crowd control with this bow, especially if we're in a team environment. Otherwise, we do have Quick Sheath level 2. Believe it or not, bow actually has one of the slower sheathing animations in Monster Hunter World, and you can absolutely get killed if you get caught sheathing at the wrong time. So this really helps you out, especially against some of the tougher fights in the game. Bow Charge Plus is also a skill that we have here. This is coming from the Mighty Bow Jewel down here that you can see. This is why I recommend bow is not actually for like beginners in Monster Hunter. You need a lot of decorations to get the bow rolling. If you're not good with your stamina management, if you want to get extra damage through force shot, spread jewels, Mighty Bow Jewel, it's a lot, honestly. But Bow Charge Plus it increases the maximum bow charge level by 1. This means that you can actually get more arrows fired off depending on if you have this skill or not. This is a must-have skill in any bow build, and I highly recommend that you slot this into not any bow build, literally every bow build. Otherwise, bow is actually a light tenderizing weapon, so Clutch Claw boost goes a long way, meaning we only have to actually Clutch Claw attack once to get the tenderize guaranteed. But yeah, wrapping up the bow, this is the final build on our build list. The bow is actually an extremely strong weapon if you have the right decorations, or you're just an absolute beast with this weapon. Not a weapon I'd recommend to newcomers, but the Fatalis bow is extremely great with its coatings, and I love that you can actually build it pretty comfortably at the end game of Monster Hunter World. So there you have it, guys and gals, Terra's best build for every single weapon in Monster Hunter World. Wrapping up some of my thoughts on this video, as we are getting closer to Monster Hunter Wilds with the mechanic of having 2 weapons at a time, I figure it's more than necessary now to be putting out these weapon guides and builds and how to play the game and how these skills work, so that we are all ready to hit the ground running as soon as Monster Hunter Wilds comes out, because having 2 weapons is going to be a part of our playstyle now. I myself am always split between every single weapon that I want to play. If anybody's ever watched my live streams, you will know just how much I struggle to pick what weapon I want next, because I just like all the weapons so much, and so I really wanted to make a video like this for you guys and gals, so I hope you enjoyed it. That being said, that is going to wrap up today's video. All I have left to ask you is, what weapon are you looking forward to the most in Monster Hunter Wilds? Do you think elemental and status ailments should actually take the front seat over raw damage in the next game? And what is going to be your main weapon combo in Monster Hunter Wilds? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, we actually stream Monster Hunter World every Thursday through Sunday, every single week, and we're going to be streaming all the way up to Monster Hunter Wilds and even further beyond with that game. So come stop by, say hello, consider joining the Terra Knights so you can have a hunt with me. Otherwise, that is going to wrap up the video for today, guys and gals. As I said before, I'm signing off. This has been Terrorize, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!